Well, hello, book lovers. Welcome to another edition of Cath-Lit Live. I am your host, Amy Cattapan. You can find me everywhere online as AJ Cattapan. That is my pen name for my children's books. Wait, here they are. Angel and Seven Riddles to Nowhere. And my teacher book is Amy J. Cattapan. Welcome to another edition of Cath-Lit Live. It's been a few weeks since I've been on again, but I've got a new book for you, and it is a new novel. If you are new to Cath-Lit Live, here's what I do. I bring you brief interviews with Catholic authors who have new books that have just released. And I'm talking with a new author tonight, somebody I've never met before. I haven't read any of his books yet, but I'm interested in learning more about him and his books, and I hope you are too. If you don't know about our sponsor yet, let me tell you about the Hello app. Cath-Lit Live is brought to you in part by my friends at the Hello app. It is a great Catholic prayer app. I believe it is the #1 Catholic app of all Catholic apps, I'm pretty sure. And it has wonderful prayers for any time of day, beautiful religious music, and it has Bible stories and rosaries led by everyone from Bishop Barron, Mark Wahlberg, Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus on The Chosen. You've got Father Mike Schmidt's Bible in a Year podcast all on there. So much great content. And if you use my link, hello.app/CatholicLive, not only will you get 3 months free of the premium version, so everything that's on the app, but then you also get, I believe it is a 20% discount after that if you decide to keep with the premium version, or you could just continue on with the free version. There are some free elements, and then there is the premium version. So anyways, I'm chatting up so much about Hello. Let's get to our author for tonight. His name is Joe Lewis, and he's here to talk about his new novel, Miracle at the Mission. Joe lives in Exton, Pennsylvania, and with his wife, Marion. They are blessed with 6 grown children and 2 granddaughters. Aside from writing, Joe teaches history at Regina Luminis Academy in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. He is a graduate of Villanova University, holds a master's in theology from the Graduate School of Theology at Christendom College, and has done doctoral work in theology at Catholic University. His first book, The Ghosts of Westthorpe Academy, was published in 2018. Just last month, Joe released the second book of his Westthorpe Academy Mysteries series entitled Miracle at the Mission. Both books have enjoyed high rankings in a number of categories among Amazon's bestsellers list. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Joe Lewis. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Amy.
Good to have you with me tonight.
Thank you. We finally got on. I know we had a little technical difficulty earlier, but here we are.
Yeah, we're
Thanks for having me.
Later than our live edition, but that's okay. And a lot of people watch the show later on YouTube or on my Instagram channel, so they'll watch it one way or another. So I'm excited to have you with me tonight. You've got a novel for us, the second in a series. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Miracle at the Mission?
Yeah, Miracle at the Mission. It's the second book, as you said. I call them the Westthorpe Academy Mysteries. It all started, my first book, I used to teach it at an all boys prep high school in the western suburbs of Philly. And there's an old building there, an old mansion, the original building of the campus. And there are all sorts of rumors over the years that there's a ghost there and there's hidden treasure there, all sorts of things. So I kept saying to myself, there's a story that needs to be told and written. And that's what I did. I put pen to paper and wrote a story. I called it the Westthorpe Academy, The Ghost of Westthorpe Academy. That's the first book. But then I got thinking, people were asking me, how about the next book? When's that coming out? So I took a trip out to California with my wife to visit my son, who's a Marine in California. And we visited some of the missions out there of Saint Junipero Serra. And I just was enchanted with the beauty of the missions and the Catholicism and the holiness of the place. And I just started piecing together a story about how these two same high school buddies in the first story go out to California and they visit the missions and they run across an old, mysterious, wise old Franciscan monk who seems to have a strange resemblance to Saint Junipero Serra himself.
Oh, intriguing.
And one thing leads to another. He warns them that they're about to experience some very strange events. He's not overly particularly specific about what they are. But as the story develops, sure enough, they fall into these extraordinary events, one of which involves the President of the United States, who happens to be visiting California at the same time for a G7 summit meeting. and there are some Russian operatives out to get the president.
Wow.
And somehow the boys get involved in this, and they even fall under suspicion of being involved somehow and have to prove their innocence with the guidance of this old Franciscan monk. And so as by the end of the story, the story climaxes at another mission that somehow brings the president and the president of Russia. And I'm not saying it's Putin, because with all that's going on in Ukraine now, it couldn't be him. It had to be post-Putin president of Russia. So I got that into the story. Some of this was happening as I was writing the book, the whole incident in Ukraine. But that's the interesting and neat thing about the story. It's very geopolitical to some extent. It's got espionage involved, but it's also very faith-based. These are two high school boys who are pretty pious in their faith. They have a great admiration for Junipero Serra because that's what brings them out to California. One of them had won a essay contest. They're writing an essay about Junipero Serra. And so they go out where he is recognized and honored for having won the contest. And then all these events happen. Everything leads one thing to another. And like I said, by the end of the story, this extraordinary miracle occurs that could spell the difference between peace and a possible next world war. But you'll have to read the book to find out.
Well, I'm intrigued. There seems to be something about old buildings
Yes.
and Franciscan monks, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but I wrote a short story a number of years ago based on an old house supposedly haunted with Franciscan monks with my characters from, I gotta point the characters from my middle grade book, Seven Riddles to Nowhere. There's a house here in the suburbs of Chicago that was owned by a guy who had a deep devotion to Saint Francis. And it's now like a community center. It's owned by the county, but it was rumored for years to be haunted by Franciscan monks, because when the guy died, the family left it to Franciscans. It was a retreat house for years before it ended up with the county. So I'm intrigued, because it sounds like we both stories.
Both stories, like you said, a building does factor into the story in many ways in both books. So yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay, now tell me about why you wrote this book. Was it just because people were asking for a sequel, or was there more to it?
Well, that was part of it, but also many may remember Junipero Serra was canonized in 2015 here in the United States. He's the only American saint. In fact, there are very few saints that have not been canonized in Rome in recent years, and he is one of them. He was canonized in Washington, D.C. at the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington by Pope Francis himself. You may remember he visited the United States in 2015. And so, having known, I'm a teacher, so I have history in particular and of theology, so I know enough about Junipero Serra, and I thought it was a beautiful thing that he was being canonized. But what bothered me, some may remember this, was the fallout. Some of the news was not good. There were many in California, for example, who were critical of Junipero Serra for much of the wrong that had happened to Native Americans, particularly in California many years ago. And I think he was wrongfully accused of much of that. And I was the only one that felt that way. So, and many people kind of took it out on him. They destroyed some of his statues. They did some damage to a couple of the missions out there. So it really, I felt I wanted to convey the truth of Junipero Serra in a way that would be kind of more fictionalized, kind of a fun story that would bring these young boys into the story from my first book. And it worked. I really felt like it does give an opportunity for Serra to kind of reclaim something of his reputation. Not that I'm the one to do that, but I think the book does some of that, again, in kind of a fun way, where these boys who admire Junipero Serra actually have something of an experience with him in the book. And I also, both my books, I try to remind us as Catholics that, you know, we're very close to the communion of saints, and they to us. And we forget that sometimes, that they're there to help us not only to get to heaven, but in this life, and to be mindful of that. And both my stories kind of do that, that there's something mystical going on in both the stories, where one of them in particular, one of the boys, has these experiences where he is in a way communicating and gaining the support and help of a saint. And so that was part of the motivation too, because I'm trying to, having had 6 children of my own and seeing them grow up and encourage them to read and so forth. It wasn't too difficult when they were young to find some decent literature among some of the great writers and even some more contemporary writers. But I noticed as I got older, the teen years, young adult, not as much good material for a kid to be attracted to, other than Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, of course, and so forth. And just my little way of making a little contribution. I know there are some writers out there kind of the same opinion of wanting to get good literature, fictional literature out to, not only the Catholic community, but to anyone who was looking for something that's not always filled with dark elements and perhaps adult themes that are not always appropriate for virtually every writer, but certainly some age appropriate literature that is not always the case with some of our young readers sometimes. So that was part of the motivation as well.
And writing is really something you've come to a little more recently in your life.
Yeah, it tells in the color of my hair.
Well, did you
I know
write
what
when you
you're
were
saying.
younger, or?
Well, it's funny. When I was younger, I really didn't care much for writing. It was something I had to do when I had to write a paper for school or something like that. And and I was more interested in sports and other things. And I didn't really do a whole lot of reading either. Most of my reading was done with that reading I had to do. But as I got older, I developed more of appreciation for reading and began to open up a whole new world of imagination and curiosity and wonder, and finally started reading some of the great literature and began to realize, and maybe I have a bit of a knack for writing too, because sometimes my imagination gets the best of me in certain things. I said, I can write a story. I can develop a narrative. And I just started doing that. I didn't really think I would write fiction, though. In my professional life, you do some writing all the time in various things. But then, like I said, in that first book, when I taught at that school, when I said to myself, I really think there's a story there, I said, let's give it a shot. And that's when I wrote the first book and have gone from there. So I do sometimes pinch myself saying, I wish I had started sooner. Yeah. So I encourage anyone out there. I remember I had an English professor in college who we would always say, everybody's got a novel within them. So it just took me a while to realize that. So
yeah, we also find it's like carving out the artwork inside. Well, Joe, where can people learn more about you and your books? Is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah, well, certainly easy to find the book on Amazon, both books. This one, Miracle at the Mission. And I've noticed that when it comes up, it also includes my first book, The Ghosts of Westthorpe Academy. You can find me, I do have a Facebook page called the Westthorpe Academy Mysteries. So you can find information there. And of course, I do have a webpage, josephlewisauthor.com. I do have a blog there as well. I've written a couple articles over the years. So, and you can also find me under our publisher, Elk Lake Publishing. I have an author page under Elk Lake Publishing, which also has information about the books as well. So
very good. All right. People have several ways to come and find about you and your books. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Joe. I know we had some difficulties getting on time, but it was good to chat with you.
Thank you, Amy. It was a pleasure and enjoyed being on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. We're going to wave goodbye to Joe. And as always, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. And if you want to check out that story I was talking about before, that story is actually free. My companion story to 7 Riddles to Nowhere, called The Monk's Castle. And you can find that on my PayHit page. Even though it's a PayHit page, it's actually a free download. You get automatically subscribed to my newsletter, but you can unsubscribe if you just want to get the story for free. It's a great little short story based on a real location here in the Chicago area. And as Joe said, it can be hard to find books for young readers, especially that teen and tween age. So I've mentioned this before, but if you're not already familiar with them, check out CatholicTeenBooks.com. There's a group of us authors who write Catholic, young adult, and middle grade fiction. And we've joined together for one website because people kept asking, where can we find a list of these books? So go to catholicteenbooks.com if you are looking for some more books. But go check out Joe's books, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And until next time, as always, I'm going to wish you a happy reading.